Just hours after the Justice Department announced it is charging a former Trump advisor over collusion with Russian media, Donald Trump made this terrifying announcement. He'll lift U.S. sanctions on Russia.
I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off. Because, look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia.
We are once again facing a serious threat to the integrity of our democratic system, Russian interference in the 2024 US presidential election. Just as in past elections, Moscow has launched a well-coordinated campaign to spread disinformation, sow division, and undermine public trust in our institutions. This time, the Russian government is using ever more sophisticated tools, including artificial intelligence-generated content and social media disinformation, to target American voters. Authorities recently seized over 30 internet domains that were secretly spreading false narratives aimed at deepening political divides. These platforms masqueraded as legitimate news outlets, deceiving millions of Americans. Even more concerning, U.S. intelligence agencies have uncovered efforts by Kremlin-backed media outlets such as RT, Russia Today, to secretly fund U.S.-based influencers, who, unknowingly, became conduits for Russian propaganda.
This morning we unsealed an indictment in the Southern District of New York of Konstantin Kalashnikov and Elena Afanasieva, two Russian-based employees of RT, a Russian state-controlled media outlet. They are charged with conspiring to commit money laundering and to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act. We allege that as part of that effort, RT and its employees, including the defendants, implemented a nearly $10 million scheme to fund and direct a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate content deemed favorable to the Russian government. To implement this scheme, the defendants directed the company to contract with U.S.-based social media influencers to share this content on their platforms. The subject matter and content of many of the videos published by the company were often consistent with Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition to core Russian interests, particularly its ongoing war in Ukraine. As alleged in our court filings, President Vladimir Putin's inner circle, including Sergei Kirillenko, directed Russian public relations companies to promote disinformation and state-sponsored narratives as part of a program to influence the 2024 U.S. presidential election. An internal planning document created by the Kremlin states that as a goal of the campaign is securing Russia's preferred outcome in the election.
The Justice Department has indicted a prominent Russian state television personality and his wife for violating sanctions and for money laundering. A television presenter and producer for Russia's state-owned Channel 1 was charged with receiving more than $1 million in compensation, a personal car and driver, and an apartment in Moscow, despite the television station's designation as sanctioned in 2022 by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control. He and his wife, Anastasia, were charged with money laundering to hide the proceeds of his work for Channel 1. The couple faces 20 years in prison for each count if convicted. They left the U.S. after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and are now believed to be in Russia, the Justice Department said. You see, this is not about just manipulating election results. It's about weakening American democracy, eroding faith in our political system and creating distrust between citizens. Russia's goals go beyond electing a particular candidate. They aim to divide us against each other, fostering an environment of chaos and confusion where you say, well, I don't know what to believe or who to believe. If that's you, then they have succeeded. The US influencers Tim Pool, Dave Rubin and Benny Johnson have addressed allegations that the US content creation company they were associated with has been provided with nearly $10 million from Russian state media employees to publish videos with messages in favor of the Kremlin's interests and agenda, including over the war in Ukraine. The conservative media company Today, Blaze Media, said it had terminated its contract with the YouTuber Lauren Chen. Chen and her husband founded Tenet Media, which received as much as $10 million from intermediaries to the Russian government, and then paid out large sums of money to conservative figures to produce online videos meant to influence the 2024 election. Talking points, the types of things that you would hear from Donald Trump or on Fox, all stemming from the Kremlin.
People sowing discord. I mean, that's what the Democrats did for 4 years when we were at each other's throats about Russia and whether or not Donald Trump was a Russian plant or a Putin puppet. The Democrats are the ones who sowed the discord.
The American influencers and media personalities acted unwittingly, according to the indictment. And this is part of the problem, is that people don't know that they are being coerced and manipulated. And to receive a payment of $400,000 a month, one might want to ask questions. Who has that type of money to spend? The 2016 election showed us how damaging foreign interference can be, and we cannot afford to let it happen again. Since then, our intelligence agencies and law enforcement have been vigilant in their efforts to safeguard our electoral process. However, the tactics being employed this year are more advanced. Russia is leveraging technology, misinformation, and media influence at unprecedented levels.
They're cultivating the field. Russia now, they're setting up a reason to crack down on social media and free speech before the next election, publicly accusing Russia of a sustained campaign. And if there are bad stories about to break on Kamala, you can be sure they're going to tell you it's Russian disinformation.
The Justice Department has already sanctioned key individuals involved, and measures are in place to disrupt Russian operations. However, protecting our democracy is not solely the responsibility of the government. We, as citizens, need to be vigilant about the information we consume and share and believe. When we fall prey to misinformation, we are unknowingly contributing to the foreign interference that threatens our democracy.
The Russians weren't messing up the election. It was the Americans. It was the Biden-Harris administration. It was bringing in these so-called intelligence agents. It was having the White House and the FBI call and say, suppress any discussion of Hunter Biden.
Donald Trump decries Russia, 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 and yet he boasts of his friendship with Vladimir Putin. He sides with Putin when it comes to being asked that question, did Putin interfere with the 2016 election?
I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer.
Donald Trump claims there's no Russian collusion, and yet he and his surrogates continue to collude. Without evidence or examples, he claims Kamala Harris is a communist, and yet he is the one siding with Russia and Republicans who continue to block aid to Ukraine. And today, he is the one promising to lift US sanctions on Russia. Why? I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.